everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. And if you haven't yet done so, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a Better for America episode. Now, today I am thrilled to have with us Tammy Bruce. Tammy Bruce is a national leader, a true conservative, and a friend of Amac. She's really a one-of-a-kind radio host, a best-selling author, and a Fox News contributor and political commentator. Like Ronald Reagan, she migrated from the left to the right and has become one of the most incisive and thoughtful voices for common-sense conservatism today. Tammy pioneered a local radio show in the 90s called The Tammy Bruce Show, and by 2005, she joined Fox News as a political commentator. She regularly guest hosts for the network's primetime programming, and she hosts her own show, Get Tammy Bruce, on Fox Nation. I love that streaming platform, and I love her show. And she's also a celebrated author, a dedicated voice for individual liberty and really shaping influence in America. And as a person who really is always ahead of the news, Tammy also writes a weekly column for all of Amac's 2.4 million members to enjoy. I'm really pleased to welcome our friend, America's Defender, Tammy. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me here. It is an honor to be associated with you, your family, and Amac. Always doing a great job. So I appreciate being with you today.
Well, thank you. And Tammy, the longer that we live, it seems the wilder the left gets. And there's a whole range of topics I want to talk to you about today. But for example, the left has gone so wild over outlawing phrases like illegal alien, or even the words election integrity are censored. We see girls' sports that are no longer just for biological girls. We see the left is at work really indoctrinating our children with Marxist ideas and critical race theory. But I think the stakes are really getting suddenly higher regarding our freedom of speech. Now, we saw that Twitter introduced a potential new owner. The left is really having a meltdown with thoughts of Elon Musk taking over Twitter. And the Biden administration recently announced the formation of a new disinformation governance board.
Right.
And the new board will be overseen by the federal government's Homeland Security Department, who will push, in my view, new tactics for information censoring. My question, Tammy, is, are we seeing a national attack on free speech, and how might we be impacted by these new developments and really pressures by the federal government to what I see as silence opposing perhaps mainly conservative views? Your thoughts?
Yes, well, you hit all the important points. That is, it's so strange hearing us. We are modern women in the 21st century. Right, we're involved in our community. The United States remains the greatest country on earth, and yet all those things you mentioned, they're sentences that we even could not comprehend would ever be an issue, like biological men, right, competing in girls' sports, or a disinformation board in the Department of Homeland Security, which was created in the aftermath, of course, of September 11th to bring together our disparate intelligence operations, which were never really talking to each other. And we wondered, how could September 11th happen? And now that same agency that is meant to protect Americans has this disinformation board in the office of the director. All right. I mean, if it was supposed to be about foreign influence, it could be with the CIA or with some other agency with the specificity of dealing with foreign threats, but it's not. It's with an agency that has been using rhetoric for quite some time now, indicating that they view Americans as the threat, ironically, to America. Well, Americans are a threat right now, and that is to the status quo, and it's to the swamp. It is a threat to a corrupt dynamic of government, regardless of who it comes from. And the other aspects you mentioned, and all of these things really are tied in together. Critical race theory is simply Marxism. It is rebranded. It is Marxism with a different cloak on, because, of course, Marxism has a very bad reputation amongst humanity. Wherever it has parasitically invaded any country that has been co-opted and tricked into accepting it has been destroyed. It's been ruined. And so they know, despite this, it's like a virus, right? A virus gets into a body. We've been dealing with the pandemic. A virus gets into a body, and even though that's its host, it can't help but kill it. And so this is no different at this point. So critical race theory, speech codes, silencing Americans, having Americans be indoctrinated through a fear-based framework, and of course then self-censoring, having a projection placed upon us, not just about the projection of those who are accusing us of things, but there's also a identity projection, where conservatives hear so often that they're racist or they're homophobic that they begin to adopt the belief that that may be true, but it is a lie. All of these things, these are practiced efforts that are cult-like practices. Many philosophers, great thinkers, have considered Marxism to be a blood cult. And it's a dynamic where there's no end, there's no satisfying their desire. And America is now in the crosshairs. Certain people, very few people, are in positions of very important arenas in the country, in academia, in government, in media, who believe in this theory of Marxism. And we see it now again, cloaked as critical race theory or anti-racism. We see it, of course, in academia in general. We see this moving through the government and government programs when Democrats are in charge, through agencies like the Homeland Security, willing to put up a disinformation board. And you're right, Rebecca, it is about silencing voices that would clarify the reality of what's going on. Marxists have always, in other countries, murdered the opposition. You can't get away with that here, but the equivalent would be to simply expel them from the public sphere. And so we're seeing that. Political correctness was the start of this, and now we're moving into, in effect, an end game. And that's where Amac, I think, comes in. It's where organizing the right comes in, and where conversations like ours come in as well.
Yeah, and Tammy, it's one of the reasons why we do this show, is to really help put some understanding, explanation around what's really happening and how people can get involved. But you're absolutely right. We see the left has a rule or ruin tactic. If they can't rule their way, they want to ruin America for the rest of us. So we see that in the way things are unfolding. They appear to be losing their minds, quite frankly. I do want to get to something else on everyone's mind, because they're certainly, the left is losing their mind over what we're seeing happening there at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court draft opinion, which was leaked. And that really became a flashpoint for pro-abortion protests. The shockwave of potentially overturning Roe v. Wade is intense, and the left seems so determined to undermine the legitimacy of the U.S. Supreme Court. So I want to ask you, how serious is the breach of ethics in this illegal violation of leaking a Supreme Court draft opinion? And then on a larger scale, how serious is the attempt by the left to delegitimize, perhaps even pack the Supreme Court? What are your thoughts there?
Well, that original conversation about packing the Supreme Court was a threat to the court. It was a statement by the so-called progressives, which are really regressives, that they wanted to change or ruin, as you've said, American institutions. The court has provided a centering, if you will, based on the Constitution. That's its threat, is the fact that it reminds everyone that we have a Constitution, a template, a divine template, in my opinion, delivered to us by the founding fathers, that makes us different and makes this country the greatest on earth. And so it's the Constitution that the left in part argues is old and is not good now for the modern age, and needs to be scrapped. And part of being able to do that would be to delegitimize the Supreme Court, delegitimize the judiciary in general, but especially the part of the judiciary that is the representation, if you will, of the Constitution. And that is, of course, the threat. So I think it is clearly, there's, you see sometimes in something that is going to expire, the most energy is at that point of expiration. It's like an exploding star.
Right.
And there's a desperation to that. And that's what we're seeing, I contend, for our audience, which I don't want them to despair. This is what we would expect to see and what we've seen with the left and the Marxists in other countries, where when they are at the brink of failure, there is a burst, like the Battle of the Bulge, right? It's like Hitler just putting everything into one point to try to make its way out. That's what we're seeing now. And
Yeah.
the beautiful thing that we have to count on and that we can see all around us is that Americans are saying no after generations, Rebecca, of Americans being targeted by the left through indoctrination. Americans have not bought the lie that America is bad, that Americans are racist, and that the Constitution is meaningless. This leak from the Supreme Court is part of that burst. And I think we should have expected it after the attacks on President Trump went unanswered. Right? These were horrible actions involving our system, the FBI, law enforcement agencies, where no one was held still. And I don't know what Durham's going to find, but no one's been held to account. What message do we think that sent to others who were maybe even slightly disturbed, certainly obsessed with their own malignant narcissism, believing the left's rhetoric that the sky is going to fall and cats and dogs are going to sleep together and everything's going to go to hell. If you've got one slightly unstable individual who believes that, and when we saw no repercussions for the dossier and an attempted coup of a sitting president, what do you think we should have expected at this point?
Very good point.
And
yeah.
So this is an opportunity for Americans to see. They're seeing what's happening. The polls after this leak of this draft opinion, since that point, have not changed when it comes to the American point of view about the Democrats. This is all political. The Democrats do not care about women. It has never been about abortion. It has been about manipulating Americans on every issue that is contentious. All right, this is an issue that people have been debating. My personal opinion throughout my adulthood has changed on this issue. My activism began on abortion rights. And I saw when I was on the left, the lie on that issue and on so many others. And to this day, I'm working to make up for that. But what I want to assure everyone that, the fact that Amac, when it started, was, the brainchild of your father, the fact that it was there at the right time for the right reasons, continues to grow and to become stronger, that you and I, who've had very different lives, perhaps very different points of view on some things, are effectively sisters in this fight. This is what America stands for. And this is what excites me. And it will be in our lifetime where we see America returning to its greatness because of the work that every American is doing. And so I think it's serious at the Supreme Court, but it's typical. The left will fail. The Democrats will fail. This will not work out for them. And we do have heroes out there who I think will take up the Reagan gauntlet. There is no Trump gauntlet yet because Trump, it's still Trump. Gauntlets will happen after the fact. So we have a lot to look forward to.
We have a lot to look forward to for sure, Tammy. And I think we are witnessing sort of a death spiral, if you will, and we're watching them come down and crash. But you mentioned how they really do manipulate and try to change the meaning of things. The left is claiming that the right to privacy that exists today between a patient and doctor is in jeopardy, right? So that's what what mainstream and stations like MSNBC and CNN want to put out. And they're also claiming that there are other constitutional rights that have flowed from Roe and Casey, including the right to marry anyone you choose. So those on the left are claiming that these decisions could impact gay rights and legislation, gay right legislation. What are your thoughts on that? Is that another lie?
Well, part of your audience may not know that I'm a gay woman. I bring it up only when it's relevant on the issues because of my past political experience. And this is one of those issues. I can tell you, it seems a little ironic to me. The left always is complaining about the judiciary and it being in control of the issues. And you know what? A lot of these issues have been and should be decided by the people. So on one hand, They don't want these issues decided by the people. And when now women are the majority of the voters in this country, and that you can persuade people, and issues that are passed legislatively, state by state. Americans, even though each state has its own culture and its own personality, really Americans are Americans, right? We are in this together. And so there is an argument that the judiciary, certainly we know the Supreme Court as an example, does not make law. What they do is interpret whether or not something is correct with the Constitution. And so Roe and Casey were decided based on this presumption that there was a right to privacy in the Constitution. This is a technical question. It's Americans, we expect a private relationship with our doctors. That is something that is ensconced in some laws, and that is something Americans can put in every state, everywhere. But of course, another irony is the left are the ones who effectively have already destroyed patient privacy with vaccine passports and with nationally mandated vaccine shots. This whole idea that you're going to have your entire medical record digitally available to the government. That, of course, these kinds of things have been moving for quite some time with a bureaucratic government that has wanted to control us. We actually have more power when we are working with our state legislatures, and our voices, our individual voices are heard there closely because we elect those people. And so they have an interest in when, AMAC members call up and say, here's what I feel about this. The Supreme Court is not in that position. And the Supreme Court is imperative for the country. But what the left is afraid of is that, in fact, they know they're out of step with America. They know Americans don't want what they're pushing on any of these issues. And they know that they will have less of an influence when Americans can, in fact, choose for themselves through the legislative process. That said, Americans also, I would have preferred, as an example, gay marriage. It was already moving from state to state in the legislatures. And a major social change like that, you need Americans to come along with it. You don't want a court order. Those really rarely work when you're dealing with major social change. This is about persuading your fellow Americans in every state to recognize it. And it was on its way. And then the Supreme Court intervened and declared it. I think it would have become national anyway. But that became a problem. Same with Obamacare. You can't have a massive social change like that. Was like one party was all voting no and the other party was all voting yes. FDR's social compact, the New Deal, that was a bipartisan effort. Americans accepted it and wanted it. Whether some of it was good or bad is another question. But these kinds of partisan push-throughs and using the judiciary to do it is a mistake. And the left has become sloppy and lazy because they haven't had to fight or persuade. This is where you really make America great, by having these debates, convincing your fellow Americans about what is right on these issues. So despite what the left is saying, these are lies about, oh, gay marriage is going to go. And another politician said, oh, they're going to start segregating schools again and outlawing interracial marriage. They think we're idiots. That is how they view the American people. They're speaking as though we're idiots, but it is also the death throw of these individuals who've never been challenged on any of these issues. So whatever the Supreme Court decides, and I believe they will overturn it, because even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, obviously an icon of the left, a woman who was a feminist and worked on these issues, she was very blunt in the weakness of the Roe decision, technically. And that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, really good. Thank you for sharing. That's very important stuff. And, for our listeners, just some interesting statistics that I came across by an organization that really promotes abortion, Very Well Health. I thought was really interesting because they essentially said that in trying to normalize abortion, which I found, very sad. Quite frankly, they're showing us why American women are really getting abortions. Now, whether or not how accurate the chart is, but the left's biggest argument is really rape, right, or health related reasons. But those reasons weren't even listed in this chart. According to this source, a staggering 40% of American women seek abortions because they don't feel financially prepared.
Right.
And they cite 36% of women get abortions because of bad timing. So, um, gone are the days where politicians felt abortion should be rare, and
Hmm.
now there really is this major push to normalize. So I thank you so much for sharing your views there. Staying on this topic, I want to put a tweet
Hmm.
on the screen that I saw you shared on Monday. I have to say, uh, and I thought it brings a really powerful perspective to the table that really points to why people are probably going to vote in 2022. What issues are important to them? And this tweet was from Allie Beth Stuckey, and she said, "Reality check. Women's fear of being unable to get baby formula will affect this vote far more than a woman's fear of being unable to get an abortion." So, my question to you, Tammy, is in your view, the Supreme Court's leaked decision helping the Democrats, or are Americans really more focused and centered on inflation, rising costs of goods and services, soaring gas prices, empty shelves? How much does that impact people versus what were the Roe v. Wade?
Well, with abortion, that has been for decades now indoctrinated by the left and the media into the American people, into American women, as the ultimate issue, etc. It is now the 21st century. It is not 1980. It's not 1960. We are in a different era where you have multiple methods of birth control, and frankly, even multiple methods, multiple abortifacients as well, like the morning after pill. I understand for people of faith that doesn't matter, and that this is understandably, a significant issue. However, American women who would maybe normally be moved in 1980 with this argument that the government is going to that everything will change if you don't have control of your own body, and that's what Americans have always stood for, is really being able to live lives that best suit us, while we make sure, of course, we honor our community. That it's about, really, it is always about family, regardless of what that family may look like. And that, of course, you can be a person of faith, that it's the future for your children, and what we are adding to the future that we can look forward to. That's been the American dream. It looks different for everyone. For suburban women, there's different categories of people who look at these issues differently. And these are the women, myself, right, being raised through the feminist movement, the children of women my age who have also been advised by and taught by my generation, have still felt and heard the rhetoric about that this would be the end of the world. The fact of the matter is that women now realize, well, wait a minute. I am involved in my community. I'm a professional. Maybe I'm a stay-at-home mom, or I'm a working mom. There are many ways that I am in control of my life. I'm active politically, or I want to contact my representatives. That maybe this is not what they're saying it is, right? That as a woman like me, people know me on the left, reminding them that yes, my whole thing has been about small government. I don't want them involved in my life. I am a conservative, because that actually is where those values live. The values of the conservative framework benefit women, people of color, and gays especially, because big government ruins people's lives and they lie to you. And that this independent sensibility comes with personal responsibility. So I think that for when we're dealing with an issue like abortion, there's the political ramifications, but I think Americans every day notice, and women are noticing, what protein can I afford for my children? What can I get into the lunchbox? What are we going to do this summer? When a birthday rolls around, what is inflation going to be? What can we afford? Suddenly, this unlimited world of this great country in this modern age is looking a lot like the 1970s. And it's looking like a world that looks like Venezuela. We saw these, we would mock and look at these shelves in the Soviet Union, in Cuba, in Venezuela. no products. And it was like, what is going on with those countries? And now it's here. And now we know. And, and Allie Beth was correct in that it is the daily experience of, all right, what can I control in my life, which are the choices I make when it comes to my husband, a boyfriend, or other actions I take, versus can I get enough gas in my car if I need to get to the hospital with my child? So what women are noticing is, as an example, if they can afford to have enough gas in the car, if there's an emergency and they've got to get their child to a doctor's office, that might be in the next town. Do they have enough gas in their car to get to work? So that, because they're not working at home remotely, that's a luxury. Some people actually have to go in, right? If you are a clerk, if you're a if you run the register at a store, if you work in retail, you're not doing that remotely. You've got to go to work. The gasoline surging still in prices, of course, across the country. Women are having to budget in that fashion. What protein is in the refrigerator? What can I feed my child? Does my child have any special needs that are requiring something at a pharmacy that is also not on the shelf? The baby formula dynamic especially. There's been some snark from the left saying that, well, breastfeeding is free. That's really lovely. Most women, I think, want to breastfeed, but the fact of the matter is some women don't have enough
Or
and
have
they
to
want
work.
they work, they want to supplement with formula, or that there's the formulas that are really impossible to get are for the allergies and the sensitivities of infants. I mean, these are infants that are requiring some special element. And 44% of that comes from China. And then there was the factory recalls. We saw this happening last year. The Biden administration did nothing. So we're looking at sending 40 billion, has been approved by the House to send to Ukraine. And this country can't get baby formula on the shelves. That is eclipsing this threat. It's not a threat to abortion rights by this Roe versus Wade decision. There is suddenly, Rebecca, an understanding and a recognition of priorities, and American women and men, families everywhere, Americans in general, I think are getting tired of being used like pawns in a game. We're tired of being lied to and manipulated and used for political means. So families want to know if they're going to be able to have a future that's better for their children than their lives are now, that they can, they've worked hard in the greatest country on earth, and that they can get the simplest of things in the store. The Democrats want them to be distracted. And this is why you're hearing everything, the things they're saying are so absurd. The American people are always underestimated. And this will not end well for the Democrats. And the Republicans must make sure and must not be afraid to step up and defend what's going on and to deal with the issue of Roe versus Wade. This is not complicated. And yet they always seem to not know exactly what to say or how to say it. And, we can have this conversation, and the American women out there understand it as well.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I want to move to another topic. You are so passionate and very persuasive on the topic of individual liberties. And we think that we're going to see a shift in the Second Amendment when the Supreme Court weighs in. There's a very authoritarian New York gun law in my mind that restricts the right to carry for self-defense. Now, in your view, how important is the right to keep and bear arms? And if the Supreme Court does allow Americans to execute their greater freedom to carry firearms, what do you think we're going to see come from the left?
Well, it's they're in meltdown mode. And because, as we've discussed, we are seeing, in fact, a resurgence of the Constitution. We're seeing a devolution of the left. So you're going to see them become, and I think it really did start with Donald Trump in a lot of ways. That was a signal. It wasn't noise, it was a signal. And so the meltdown has been quite frantic, and it will continue because their failures will continue. But in the meantime, this is why the Supreme Court is such a threat to them, because the Constitution matters. And when it comes to certainly the Second Amendment, just like with the first,
The Supreme Court's already weighed in against, like, Washington, D.C.'s draconian gun law. New York's already had to change part of their gun laws because of a previous decision and in anticipation of the Supreme Court striking down what New York had been doing in years past. So the left knows what they're doing is unconstitutional. They know it. And that's why they're so threatened by the Supreme Court. They don't want it to matter. Like with COVID, a lot of unconstitutional things were happening by the government, but it was an emergency. And they don't want these restrictions, the pesky restriction of the American Constitution. But that is what's protected us and will continue to protect us from the left. So when it comes to certainly firearms, look, the first, as many people note, right, the First Amendment means nothing if there is no Second Amendment. That it is Americans and the ultimate ability for us to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves and our family, and also for a government to understand that we are armed. That you've got the first thing that Venezuela did when the Marxists took over there was everyone turned in their guns. That is a thing that the left knows it must accomplish. Because they want to make sure that you have no recourse over what they plan to do to you. The founders understood this. They understood that because the monarchies had those positions. These dictatorships historically had those positions, and they need to have that be the case because otherwise they will not survive. No living thing, not just human beings on Earth, want to be enslaved, want to be trapped, want to be underfoot of anything. Everything, whether it's weeds coming out of the crack in your driveway, animals in the rainforest, human beings, creatures in the sea, the instinct is for freedom. It is for every instinct is for family. It is for groupings. It's for your area, your space, and live and rising. It is the
Right,
nature of
to
rising.
thrive. Sure,
Yes,
thrive
exactly.
and prosper here in America. And
see
it's the
that-
reason why we have people coming over this border. It's the reason why people want to get into America so badly. And many people, I know many people who came from other countries, who immigrated to America, who assimilated, who learned the language, who are defenders of our great freedoms here today. We welcome people to come to America, but we've got to make sure they're doing it in a way that doesn't put American citizens at risk. You're such a defender of liberty, and I just enjoy these conversations so much. I want to close by asking you for some optimism because, as we pivot to the 2022 election, we've got a lot to be hopeful for. Share with us sort of what our members and listeners should be thinking about. How important is the 2022 election, and what kind of hope do you see for us as we move forward 2022 and beyond?
Look, I know that there's bad news every day, right? And I work with Fox, and the issues every day can be intense and sometimes depressing. But the fact is, this is the best time for us to be in this position. We're able to have this conversation through technology. Social media, with all of our complaints, allows us to get the word out, allows us to learn what the bad guys are doing, allows us to organize. It's an amazing time for all of us to realize that we have much more in common than not. The left wants us to think badly of each other. That is failing. Americans are in this together. I really subscribe to the Reagan Happy Warrior framework, that we should be grateful that we are the ones at the front line right now, especially with the talent that conservatives and Republicans have, the arguments regarding life, and the issue, especially for those who've been pro-choice or who now are questioning issues, that with new technology showing us about life in the womb, how early a baby can survive once it's born, the craven, horrible comments of a Ralph Northam. The Democrats are the Ralph Northam party. The former governor of Virginia talking about you have the baby and then you make the baby comfortable before you discuss what it is you're going to do with the baby. All Americans are appalled at the trajectory of the issue of the so-called pro-choicers at this point, which in fact really is about abortion on demand, which no one wanted, and this was never the goal. And yet, many of the pro-lifers were saying from the start, this is becoming a throwaway society, and this is about killing babies, and it will not stop only in the womb. And you know what? You were right. So we are finally a generation with technology and modern medicine and communication where we can come together, we can organize, we see who's lying, we see it quickly so we can make decisions. We don't have to wait years before we learn about stuff. So I'm excited. The 2022 election is, we thought the Donald Trump election was the line in the sand.
Yeah.
22 is going to be the reset to get a Congress that he can work with. I hope he runs again. I don't know if he will, but there's a lot of talent that is not Democrat. Their backbench is non-existent, but there's Ron DeSantis. There's a lot of talent who've been inspired and informed by Donald Trump and the support by the American people who have not wavered despite all the slander and threats. So 22 is going to be a remarkable statement. It must be a statement. And then that will, of course, set the table for the presidential election. And it is exciting. It is what the founders were expecting. It is what they had hoped the American people would become. And now, the line is here and we are it. And we're going to do it, and we're going to be able to live out our lives, and in our last breath know that we did a great thing, not just for this country, but for the world, for generations to come.
Oh, Tammy, so important words to remember. I want to let everyone know that the magazine, our magazine, should be hitting your mailbox any day if you haven't received it yet. The magazine, A World in Chaos. And folks, you can get this magazine right on our website, amac.us. We've got the digital version there. And in this magazine, we've got what I call an election guide. It really outlines how the Democrats really squandered historic advantages and what you need to know when you go to the ballot box. So be sure to check out that magazine or visit our site. Yeah. Tammy, thank you for being here. You are such a leader and someone we want to listen to. Tell our listeners, how can they listen to more of you?
Well,
where can they find you?
Yes, I've got a website, tammybruce.com, conveniently is my name. Also, of course, I'm on Fox News. I'm a Fox News contributor often. You'll see me as a guest on shows, sometimes guest hosting. So that's fun. I'm on Twitter at Hey Tammy Bruce. And if people are on Locals, I have a page on the Locals website as well, which is tammybruce.locals.com. And of course, every week, my column here at Amac. And I enjoy that immensely, getting to know the membership. And just love hearing from people, and I look forward to many more years of being shoulder to shoulder with you and your supporters.
Well, thank you, Tammy, because I know you are going to continue to be a solid and strong and very positive voice for America, for your show. You're on Fox and for AMAC members. And so we really appreciate you here. And as this election cycle really unfolds, we will be back to you for more insights. So we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Excellent. And for all of you listening, AMAC members, thank you for tuning in today. If you haven't downloaded that AMAC News app, you can get to Tammy Bruce's articles right there on the AMAC News app. It's free. You can watch this show and track breaking news right on your smartphone. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button, like, follow, and share wherever you are on social media. I'm Rebecca Weber. Until next time, have a great day, everyone. God bless you. See you soon.
You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.